I appreciate you guys taking time out. I mean, basically, you're out here in the evening, taking time away from your family, and really what this is about getting ourselves educated, informed about what's going on, and specifically as it relates to some of the things that are going on with firearm ownership and stuff like that, even in North Carolina right now. If you haven't heard about HB 650, I'm going to talk about it here in just a little bit. Some major changes have just taken effect or are in the process of taking effect. They will be in effect by December 1st of this year. Okay? So I'm going to touch on a couple things real quick on that, and then I'm just going to probably go ahead and really kind of dive into that HB 650 and kind of try to give you an idea of what is to come as of December 1st. I'm going to kind of focus on that because that's fairly significant. I can give you information based on where we are right now today, and then I'm going to kind of fast forward into, okay, December 1st, this is what is going to be applicable to you and as far as your concealed carry or if you're home defense or whatever, okay? But first I wanted to touch base just real quickly on who remembers what the 10 Commandments are. Okay. I mean, most conservative types know the 10 Commandments. What is one of the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not kill. Right? So, one of the things that you're going to find if you decide to conceal carry, or even if you just decide that you're going to basically protect your home, where you end up actually having to use that tactic to defend your home, your family, or whatever, you're going to have to take in consideration some of the people you may work with, some of the people you may go to church with may not have the same, likings or ability to understand why you would take a firearm and literally take somebody else's life. So there's some scrutiny there that you're going to be under. The one thing that every person that's ever had a self-defense shoot actually ends up saying afterwards is their life will never be the same. It totally changes their life. I would even say that those folks who have had accidental discharges of firearms, in the case of maybe hunting accidents and stuff like that, will tell you it totally changed their life. Firearms are a big thing. They are lethal weapons. They will change your life, and there's kind of a ripple effect throughout the community. So don't take firearms lightly. I mean, there is training that you can take, basic firearm training. Just some of the classes that I teach are really a basic firearms type and rifle, both pistol and rifle. And then there's defensive pistol in the home and outside the home and concealed carry. Obviously, I teach hunter's ed, all kinds of different things like that. But I really wanted to kind of start off with thou shalt not kill and the consequences, because more than likely, if you actually end up using a firearm to defend your home or somebody that you love, there's a chance and a pretty high probability that you may actually they're gonna take your firearm from you. They may actually take you down and run you through the line, fingerprint you, and all that kind of stuff while they're doing their investigation. So just because you plead justified self-defense doesn't necessarily mean you aren't going to get to go down and visit the local jail. You're going to lose potentially days from work. You're going to have attorney's fees. This is very serious business, okay? But I also want to touch base just real quick. This is, for those of you who may be NRA members, there's a magazine called American Rifle, and that's one of the ones you can select. And what they have in here is the Armed Citizen. There's normally one page of just some of the local situations that people have found themselves in. I'm going to read this for you real quick. It's a fairly short one, but it kind of brings to light the importance of what we're talking about here. Early one afternoon, a man knocked on a woman's door and claimed to be there to check on roof damage for an insurance company. As soon as he was inside, he punched the woman and knocked her to the ground. The woman broke free in the ensuing struggle, and suspect followed her into a bedroom. She managed to fight off the suspect and claw her way to her pistol. As soon as she had the gun in her hands, the man fled the area. Now, that one had a pretty happy ending. She didn't get assaulted. I mean, the guy got away, but at least, you know, she didn't get assaulted. And to me, that's really the most important of all, right? Now, the guy may have gone down the road and assaulted somebody else, but the way it ended up in that particular case, you know, maybe the guy saw the gun and got scared enough that he won't do it again. We don't know all the details. But, and they certainly don't all end that way. What does the Second Amendment say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, some, for whatever reason, when they're looking at that line, right after it says keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed, they say, well, that's only for militia type people. Well, if you think about when this was written, and you think about what a militia was, it was citizen soldiers, volunteers, okay? It was just everyday people like you and me. Shall not be infringed. Okay. Now, HB 650. As it stands right now, you have no duty to retreat from in your home. Okay? So, bad guy comes in. The whole philosophy behind this whole castle doctrine, you may have heard the kind of the catchphrase is castle doctrine, is that if this is my home, this is my castle. And if I can't feel safe in my castle or my home, then where can I truly feel safe? And so that's the whole philosophy or the whole theory behind the castle doctrine is, and some states have kind of varying degrees of the castle doctrine. Essentially what it means is, if you got the full-blown castle doctrine, an intruder comes in, you can shoot to defend your home and so on and so forth, okay? Now, the way the law is today, and this is kind of an abbreviated version of some of the legal stuff I have to teach in the concealed carry class. Basically, you can shoot through the door to stop forcible entry. If you feel like you're breaking in to commit violence or some sort of sexual assault and so on and so forth. I mean, obviously, if they're kicking in your door with a crowbar or using a baseball bat, they're not going to come in there just to shake your hand. So essentially what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to shoot through the door to stop forcible entry. Now, on the flip side of that, you got to be careful because it's a felony if you shoot from inside a structure, outside a structure, and hit somebody or something, okay? It's also a felony if you shoot from the outside in through the wall or the door or whatever, and you hit somebody on the inside. So what I'm getting at here is, and it's a felony, it's actually a misdemeanor if you were to pull a firearm on somebody and just point it at them, okay? So the bottom line here is, don't ever point a firearm at anybody for any reason except to shoot them to defend yourself or come to the defense of somebody else. That's the bottom line. I mean, one of the golden rule is in all firearms training, keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction. Even in hunter's education, I just taught a class last weekend, and I just pound that in these kids' heads all the time. Firearms are dangerous. Last year, there was two guys out dove hunting. One was sitting on a bucket. One was sitting right over here. They were literally about 3 or 4 feet apart. The guy over here saw a dove come up. He went to swing up with his shotgun. At the same time he was squeezing his trigger, his buddy next to him stood up. Okay? It's bad news. and don't do it. I mean, you have to be in tune with what's going on when you have a firearm. They're dangerous. They'll kill people. Okay. Once you gain access to the home, once he gains access to the home, certain criteria has to be met. Now, this is pre-December 1st, 2011. Certain criteria has to be met. One, you have to believe, and essentially, and the second option is be able to convince a jury of this, that you were in fear for your life, that you were, there was great bodily harm, that you truly believed that great bodily harm was going to come to you. You were going to lose an arm, an organ, you were going to die, or they were going to sexually assault you. Okay, that's what basically number one is. Two is you have to be able to communicate that to a jury, and basically the way it reads is convince a person of ordinary firmness, which is a juror, that these circumstances were basically, that was the only option for you to take, okay? Then secondly, you can't be the instigator. If you started the fight, you have no legal right to plead justified self-defense, okay? So, and you can't use excessive force. So if he's already on the ground, you walk over there and you pump a couple more rounds into him, that would be excessive force, obviously, right? Okay, so that's some of the stuff, but again, you have no duty to retreat. It's a good idea to probably retreat if you can back into your house and call 911, but you may not always be able to do that for whatever reason. It's a good idea, I always tell my students, it's a good idea to have 911 on the phone, because what is happening on the other end of that phone line?
They're recording.
Exactly. They are recording that phone line, and so they can hear everything that's going on. Now, when it comes time for your trial, if it comes to that point, and they can play back that 911 recording saying, "Stop, I'll shoot, I've got a gun," so on and so forth. They hear all that on that recording. It's going to be pretty easy for a jury to come back and say, you know what, it's pretty dadgum obvious. This homeowner was sitting there minding their own business. This bad guy comes in, starts trying to rip through the house and bash things in and so on and so forth. And obviously it goes without saying in most points, at most points, when you're talking about some of those scenarios. But some of these scenarios can get kind of complicated. One of the examples I use in my class is also a situation that I ran into as just a little boy. I was at home. We lived in the country. There was an accident, a car accident down the road. It was dark out. I was getting ready to go to bed. And somebody came up beating on the door, okay? Well, this gal had blood on her arms, her hands, everything like that. Well, we didn't know there was an accident down the intersection about a quarter mile away, but we just happened to be the only home with lights on, okay? So this gal's beating on the door saying, hey, we need help, whatever, okay? And so if in that case, if we were to shoot, obviously we would be looking at probably murder, manslaughter type charges, okay? But keep those things in mind. Basically, the option to be able to shoot through that door is there to defend you in case of a certain kind of a violent activity. It doesn't mean everybody that comes to your door is a bad guy. It doesn't mean that you're just supposed to pull out the shotgun and start blasting holes in the wall because you think he may be sneaking around through your bushes. That's not the point, okay? But HB 650, I want to touch on this. They further confirm the ability of saying you don't have a duty to retreat, okay? And for some of the changes, if you are just hearing about this, it just, again, December 1st, it's going to be effective. Some of the major changes that I've noticed, the lawful, I'm going to kind of read some of this because it's better if I just read it and not put my own little spin on it here. The lawful occupant of a home, motor vehicle, or workplace is presumed, there's a presumption, okay, which is kind of important, to have held a reasonable fear of imminent death, serious bodily harm to himself or herself or another. Because as it stands right now, common law basically says you as an individual, say you and your wife come out of a movie theater. You come out and you hear some screaming or some rustling around in the bushes over here outside the parking lot. Because, you know, the last time I went to a movie theater, I always ended up having to park clear at the back end because I always peeling in the parking lot right at the last minute, you know. So I'm like, you go out there and then you hear some rustling in the bushes, okay? You can come into defense of another. But, say for instance, in that case, that would be pretty clear. I mean, you got a girl over there screaming, help me, rape, whatever she's saying, and you come in defense of her, you know, there. However, you walk into maybe a convenience store, and you don't know all the parties that are in the situation. All you know is there's something bad going down. The dude's got a hoodie on or whatever he's got going on, and he's holding somebody up or something. Are you gonna, first of all, you probably shouldn't even step inside that door if you see a dude with a hoodie on. Are you aware enough of what's going on to notice that? But then secondly, if now you mistakenly stepped your foot in there and now this is going on, you can't necessarily see if there's a gun or not. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna respond? And a lot of times when it comes to self-defense, what we need to be paying attention to is staying out of any kind of situations where we're going to have to be, where we may have to deploy a firearm or something like that to help ourselves out. However, you know, we find ourselves in this situation, you're late, you're running quick, you know, you're quick in the convenience store and grab your coffee and go, and before, I mean, you're in the door already. It's too late. So you go in there. At what point do you decide this person has a legal right to plead justified self-defense? So I can go ahead and pull my concealed and defend this person, okay? Because as it stands, common law says, if this person, this cashier or this waiter or whatever, is in fear for his life, so on and so forth, he didn't provoke it. And that's normally what gets everybody. Because if you didn't see the scenario from the beginning, you don't know who provoked what. If it's a parking lot of an Applebee's or a Chili's or a club or a bar or something like that, and you try to come in defense of somebody that maybe was the provoker or the instigator of a fight, then you are in trouble. Because if they were the instigator, there's no legal right to plead justified self-defense. Okay, so now we can kind of getting back here. Serious bodily harm, if both apply. The person against whom the defensive force was used was in the process of unlawfully or forcefully entering. Okay, so if they were in the process of it, if they were kicking in the door, you can use deadly force. Obviously, there has to be, in other words, if somebody's just mad at you and kicking in your door, that's going to be, you may be able to justify that, but you better know, you better have your story straight, and you better know for sure that, hey, this guy intends to do me harm. Okay. Or was attempting to remove another person against that person's will from the home, motor vehicle, or workplace. So say you're in the movie theater. You come out, you got a car out there, you got somebody screaming over there, getting jerked out of their car. Can you now go over there and execute a little bit of justice? Well, you can, but again, you're coming in defense of somebody else, so just make sure that you know the facts. Sometimes it's better to be a good witness than it is to get involved, if you know what I mean. Now, obviously, if they're going back in the trees, the guy's dragging her back in the trees by a clump of hair, it's pretty obvious what's going on. But if that's maybe a undercover officer, okay, that is, for whatever reason, she had drugs in the car or something like this, what are you going to do now? Because now you just shot a law enforcement officer, and you're having to explain why you did. Okay? The presumption to have held a fear of imminent death, serious bodily harm to himself or herself or another. The presumption. You are presumed innocent until proven guilty, right? Well, in this case here, which this wasn't the case, and isn't the case up until December 1st, 2011, there was no presumption. Okay? But now you are presumed to be in fear for your life. You are presumed to be a victim of violence, some sort of violence, some sort of great bodily harm, sexual assault, these kinds of things, okay? Okay. Presumption. That is a key thing. Okay. A person who unlawfully and by force enters or attempts to enter a person's home, motor vehicle, or workplace is presumed to be doing so with the intent to commit an unlawful act involving force and violence. They just kind of said it another way, but the presumption, between that and the lack of civil suit being filed after the fact, those are two of the pretty major changes in this HB 650. A lawful occupant within his or her home, motor vehicle, or workplace does not have a duty to retreat from an intruder. If the guy comes to your door, he comes in your house. I mean, I get this a lot of times in these classes. Student, well, I need to shoot him, I need to drag him outside. Or if I shoot him outside, I need to drag him inside.